What up? It's your boy T-Bear in the reaction. So, tongue tie. Anyway, I felt wrong that I gave y'all not the best reaction to the what if as well too, because I was fighting sleep or everything. That being said, I'm gonna redo this be a rare redo of reactions as well too. Especially if some asshole kind of comment on my video saying I don't know what he did because I was like half asleep or he's just being an asshole. If I can figure in the comment, or probably not did. Yeah, nobody care about your reaction or your constant nodding. I mean, you got a lot of folks who love the just hop on my videos just to talk shit. You got a little of that. Nowhere around my videos when they ain't no other time, but soon they catch a bad video, they ready to talk. They looking to do is talk shit. That's the only time they say something. But anyway, this is rare time I do this. I do a re-reaction. This is a super rare time. So yeah, other than that, without further ado, we're gonna check out a better reaction of biggest what if in WWE history. Let's get it. Maybe it was some way I can put some input as well too, because I'm fully awake. Anyway, let's get it.
In the world of WWE, there have been certain
moments. Yeah, as for what ifs, it's always what if is a thing with anything in sports, but most importantly in wrestling. Whether a Troy line was different, a certain win didn't happen, a certain injury didn't happen, or even a certain pass didn't happen. Anyway, let's go.
Moments that changed wrestling history forever. Be it the end of The Undertaker's streak, Vince buying WCW, the Chris Benoit tragedy, or the Montreal Screwjob. But what if these events played out differently? What if the streak didn't end at WrestleMania 30? What if WCW won the war? What if CM Punk didn't walk out of WWE in 2014? What if Triple H didn't marry Stephanie? What if John Cena never turned heel during his final run? How different would the landscape of pro wrestling look? Well, in this video, we're exploring all these scenarios and much more as we discuss the biggest what-ifs in WWE history, starting with the night the wrestling world stood still. On April 6th, 2014, Brock Lesnar ended The Undertaker's undefeated WrestleMania streak. The night gave Lesnar enough credibility and heat to become the final boss of WWE for almost a decade, but broke the heart of every hardcore fan who had watched Taker defend his streak against the likes of Kane, Edge, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. But what if WWE never pulled...
I remember thinking that was a mistake or something. That wasn't supposed to happen, but yeah.
...pulled that trigger? What if Taker walked out of Mania 30 still undefeated? Well, personally, I would have preferred Taker to retire at WrestleMania with the streak intact forever. But knowing the WWE, if it wasn't Lesnar, they'd probably have Taker lose his streak to one of two men. The most likely scenario the following year at WrestleMania would have been Bray Wyatt ending the myth of the dead man and becoming the new face of fear. After beating Taker, Wyatt would incorporate supernatural themes from the Phenom's character into his own. And instead of spinning his wheels in mid-card feuds for years, Bray Wyatt becomes a genuine main event player and the company's top heel for the next decade. And if not Wyatt, the other candidate...
Definitely would definitely help this career as well too, though, because I don't know what is it about Bray Wyatt or anything associated with Bray Wyatt that doesn't end up not working with WWE, to the fact that releases happen, the booking don't be the best or anything. It's crazy.
Inevitably would have been Roman Reigns. But here's the crucial difference. If Reigns had been the one to end a still pristine streak at WrestleMania 33 or 34, the heat would have been even more nuclear. Lesnar breaking it first deflated the entire concept when Reigns won at Mania 33. Reigns ending an untouched 25-year streak would have been one of the biggest moments in modern WWE. But personally, yeah, I'd still have Taker retire undefeated at WrestleMania after having some dream matches against guys like Sting and John Cena. However, the end
crazy we never got that Sting one. We never got that, man.
Of the streak wasn't the only controversial thing that happened in 2014. On January 27th, 2014, the night after the Royal Rumble, CM Punk walked into Vince McMahon's office, told him he was done, and left. He felt like he was spinning his wheels while part-timers like Lesnar and The Rock got the spotlight, and the company was grooming Roman Reigns for a push he didn't think Reigns was ready for. Punk's departure left a massive hole...
That's explained their beef heading to that feud this past WrestleMania.
...in the roster, and WWE had to change plans heading into Mania. But here's what changes if Punk stays. The most immediate fallout of Punk's exit was Daniel Bryan's WrestleMania 30 story. With Punk gone,
no lie, I would it would be cool that Punk stayed, but that would have sucked if for Daniel Bryan for sure.
WWE needed a babyface to fight against the Authority. Initial plans for Mania 30 were for Punk to face Triple H and Bryan to wrestle Sheamus. After Punk left, Bryan was plugged into that role and delivered one of the greatest WrestleMania moments ever.
That's facts.
But in a world where Punk is still on the roster, Bryan likely doesn't get that moment.
That sucks.
What Punk's presence does instead is far more compelling in the long run. Seth Rollins turns on the Shield in June 2014, and Rollins as the corporate champion spends the majority of 2015 feuding against Punk as the obsessive anti-establishment challenger.
That'd be interesting. The CM Punk and Seth Rollins feud was started then.
And then comes the wild turn. By 2015 or 2016, Lord. Frustrated with his inability to beat the Authority and with Rollins out due to injury, Punk becomes the corporate champion and feuds against a babyface Roman Reigns heading into WrestleMania 32. That's the match that could have finally made the crowd accept Reigns, because they...
That would have been cool. That would have been cool, especially since how you felt about Roman. Ooh, that would have been cool. That would definitely got him the babyface pop they've been loyal for the longest time. He got it for a while now as recently, but most recently until this thing with until him winning the belt back and his feud with Jacob. But yeah,
they'd be too busy hating Punk. But the ripple effects don't stop there. Styles arrives in WWE in early 2016. In reality, Punk was already gone. But what if they're both on the roster simultaneously? Yeah. Styles versus Punk.
You have that matchup and possibly a storyline feud instead of a one-off for a one-off heading to possibly AJ's retire, for sure.
Guys who defined independent wrestling now in WWE's biggest arenas. It's the match a generation of fans dreamed about. Punk would have had a dream feud against Styles in 2016 and 2017, before eventually leaving for AEW anyway. But here's the thing, a Punk who left WWE more fulfilled, with better matches on his resume and a WrestleMania main event, might have arrived in AEW with less chip on his shoulder and more patience. The infamous backstage dysfunction with the Elite, the press conference outbursts, the all-in brawl, maybe none of that happens. Or maybe it all does, because CM Punk is CM Punk. But moving on from the Punk scenario, our next what if begins with an injured shoulder and ends with the creation of AEW. At SummerSlam 2016, Finn defeated Seth Rollins to become the inaugural Universal Champion. It should have been the beginning of a new era on Monday Night Raw. Instead, during that very match, he suffered a severe shoulder injury requiring surgery. And 24 hours after his crowning achievement, he was forced to relinquish the title. WWE pivoted and eventually placed the Universal Championship on Kevin Owens, with Chris Jericho emerging as his best friend, leading to a Mania 33 program. Now imagine Finn never gets injured and holds that Universal Championship through the remainder of 2016 and into WrestleMania 33. His WrestleMania 33 match would either a long-simmering rematch with Seth Rollins, a fatal four-way between Rollins, Owens, and Jericho, or simply the Demon King versus Owens one-on-one in a rematch from NXT. That's the obvious upside. But the real butterfly effect here is what happens to Chris Jericho. In the real timeline, Kevin Owens losing the Universal title to Goldberg in early 2017 was a creative gut punch. Owens and Jericho's feud had been building beautifully toward a WrestleMania 33 Universal Championship main event.
So that's why people was a little mad about Goldberg beating KO. At the time, I was like, it was like what it is, because KO was a heel at the time and Goldberg was the supposed face, but that explains why
Goldberg squashed Owens in under 2 minutes, and suddenly, the most entertaining act on Raw was demoted to a United States title match. Jericho felt humiliated. He felt that he and Owens had done everything right, and WWE had pulled the rug from under them at the last second in favor of a part-time nostalgia act. That bitterness became the catalyst for everything that followed. Jericho went to New Japan in January 2018, had a critically acclaimed match with Kenny Omega, and proved that the pro wrestling world extended far beyond WWE's borders. That match was a statement. And when Tony Khan came calling with the vision for all elite wrestling, Jericho's credibility and star power were the cornerstone that made it real. Without Finn's injury, Jericho perhaps doesn't get rug pulled by Vince, stays happy in WWE.
That's a good perspective and scenario right there for sure.
Probably works a lighter schedule and never makes that leap to New Japan. And if Jericho never makes that leap, if he never becomes AEW's first world champion and gives the new company its mainstream credibility on night one, does AEW launch in the same way? Does it get the same media attention? Does it even survive its first year? One shoulder injury in Brooklyn didn't just derail Finn's career, it may have inadvertently created WWE's first real competition in 2 decades. But if we're talking about moments that accidentally shaped the entire wrestling industry, nothing compares to our next What If. May 1996, Madison Square Garden. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were wrestling their final matches on the show before jumping to WCW. But after the show, something unexpected happened. Nash, Hall, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels, all real-life best friends, known backstage as The Clique, embraced in the middle of the ring, in front of the live audience. They broke kayfabe completely, which was an unforgivable sin. Vince McMahon needed someone to punish.
This is something to think about. This is like around the time the New Generation era, earlier when, internet wasn't like that. It happened to come out because, a footage, somebody took footage. I don't think you were supposed to have camera footage in a live event like that anyway, but somebody brought footage and put that out. Yeah. It's like it all depends on. It's not just the guy. It also goes on whoever put the video out. Kind of caused a lot of trouble. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, and this is our time where kayfabe breaking was very viewed. At the time we thought everybody was who they were. Hell, we was thinking Yokozuna was really Japanese, but still.
Since Hall and Nash were already out the door, and HBK was his golden boy, Triple H took the fall. He was stripped of his planned King of the Ring 1996 victory and replaced. The crown, the throne, and the career-launching platform went instead to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And what Austin did with that moment changed everything. His King of the Ring coronation speech, the infamous Austin 3:16 promo, launched the most important character in WWE history.
One thing about Triple H getting punished for that, somebody jokingly said that, but it could be fucking around me too. That's why I despise how it went with Roman. A lot of people, somebody claimed that the reason why the Reign of Terror happened was something needed to happen because how WWE did Triple H dirty over the over the curtain call as well too. How he even got punished as well too. Remember and plus he had that promo about it too. It was a little bit way before the Reign of Terror. So a lot of people was thinking that their Reign of Terror was like a little apology and make up for that. And that made me always feel like that the reason why we suffered that 4 year of the tribal chief run and everything barely because that was a makeup for the asshole fans booing them and the bad booking. So yeah, so I feel like the two went hand in hand in a way
and set the stage for the entire Attitude Era. But what if that never happened?
Right.
Without the curtain call and its fallout, Triple H wins King of the Ring as originally planned. Austin remains an upper mid-carder, but the rocket ship never launches the same way. So who carries WWE through the Monday Night Wars? Does Triple H become the face of the company? Do we get Vince versus Triple H and The Rock versus Triple H as the top feuds? Does it match the electricity of Austin versus McMahon? What happens to Austin? Does he marry Stephanie and run WWE today?
Nothing against it, but that'd be odd. But I feel like in that part, it was great that Austin was the top guy, but at the same time,
one house show embrace in Madison Square Garden changed the entire landscape of pro wrestling. If there was no curtain call, there might have never been an Austin 3:16, and WWF might have never won the war. And had WCW won, the entire history of professional wrestling takes a different shape. Instead of WrestleMania, we would be tuning in to Roman Reigns versus CM Punk at Starrcade. But while the curtain call...
That just don't sound right, Nicole. That just don't sound right. I mean, nothing is actually done, but Starrcade, Starrcade was their equivalent to WrestleMania. That just sound kind of odd on the cool. That Starrcade, I don't know, just something Starrcade sounds cool, just doesn't have the same appeal as the title Wrestlemania on the cool. Just saying.
All reshaped the Attitude Era. Our next What If is the biggest missed opportunity of the modern era. By 2009, Jeff Hardy was at his absolute peak. He'd won the WWE Championship at Armageddon 2008 and carried SmackDown as its flagship star through the first half of 2009. The crowd loved him in a way that felt organic, and he was rivaling John Cena in merchandise sales. For that brief window, he was the most beloved babyface in the company.
Yes.
And then CM Punk happened. Punk cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase on a battered Hardy, launching one of the most underrated feuds of that era. But by August 2009, after losing to Punk in a brutal loser leaves WWE steel cage match, Hardy was gone. He eventually surfaced in TNA, where he had his own messy chapter before eventually returning to WWE years later. But what if Jeff never left in 2009? What if he stayed as the face of SmackDown? The most immediate consequence is Hardy walking into WrestleMania 26 as a legit World Championship contender. A TLC bout between Hardy and The Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania would have been a dream match.
It would.
But even if the stipulation of Punk versus Hardy was changed from loser leaves WWE to loser leaves SmackDown, things could have been interesting if Hardy went to Raw because Hardy was breathing down Cena's neck in terms of popularity. In an alternate 2010, you slide Hardy onto Raw and suddenly Cena has a babyface rival who the crowd chooses over him. Two fan favorites competing for the same audience's affection with the WWE Championship as the backdrop. And beyond that single program, Hardy would be feuding with Batista, Sheamus, and maybe even crossing paths with a debuting Wade Barrett and the Nexus. But here's the tragic part of this what if. Knowing Jeff, knowing his history, knowing the personal battles he's fought throughout his life, it was probably never going to last forever. At some point, things would have unraveled anyway. He would have eventually left for TNA. We still get the Broken Hardy saga with Matt. We still get his heel run in TNA. Most of the long-term story plays out similarly. But that window of opportunity, roughly WrestleMania 26 through WrestleMania 27, represents a version of Jeff Hardy that never got to exist. And for fans who lived through that era, that's a genuinely painful thing to think about. But speaking of crazy what-if situations, what if John Cena was released in 2002 as planned? I know it sounds absurd, but it was almost reality. By late 2002, John Cena had debuted on SmackDown with a strong showing against Kurt Angle, but then absolutely nothing happened. He was a generic, forgettable lower-card wrestler with nothing that separated him from 100 other guys on the roster. Management saw nothing special in him, and by the end of the year, a release was being seriously considered. What saved him was a bus ride. During a European tour, Cena was freestyling in the back of a talent bus just to kill time. Stephanie McMahon overheard him, saw the charisma and the quick wit in real time, and greenlit the rapper character that revived his career entirely. 2.5 years later, he was WWE champion. 15 years later, he held the record for most world title reigns in WWE history, but erased that bus ride. Released John Cena in late 2002. And what does WWE look like? The most immediate answer is that Batista fills the void. Without Cena occupying the top babyface position on SmackDown and eventually Raw, Batista becomes the undisputed face of the entire company through the mid-2000s. The hustle, loyalty, respect character, the Superman who kids love and who carries the company through a PG transition, that becomes Batista's identity instead. And alongside Batista, Randy Orton plays the lead villain just like he did against Cena. Their dynamic carries Raw for years. Maybe instead of Cena, we get Batista versus The Rock at Mania 28 and Lesnar versus Batista after that. It's strange to say, but one woman overhearing a freestyle rap on a European tour bus may have been the single most important moment in 21st century wrestling. But while Cena's presence shaped the PG era, Roman Reigns' absence from the Day One event reshaped the entire landscape of modern...
This definitely did. I feel like he could have lost that day. But and also, since it didn't happen, not only it definitely changed a lot of things, they did Big E so dirty. I still learn to this day, never forget him for doing Big E like that.
WWE.
Yeah, they did Big E dirty that day.
On January 1st, 2022, Roman Reigns was pulled from his match against Brock Lesnar hours before bell time at the Day One event. WWE scrambled, added Brock Lesnar to the WWE Championship match, and Lesnar walked out as champion. What felt like
Brock was the face time, but it was like almost like damn old Brock again. I almost felt like I was gonna be booing old Brock again, but he was a baby face, and he went against a dead heel Roman down the line. So
a chaotic last-minute change was actually, in retrospect, the domino that knocked over everything. Because here's what the original plan was. Roman Reigns was supposed to lose the Universal Championship to Brock Lesnar at Day 1, the historic title reign that eventually stretched to 1,316 days, the reign that defined the tribal chief character that built the bloodline into the most compelling faction in modern wrestling history, was supposed to end right there in the first week of January.
Wow.
Roman drops the title, perhaps enters a program with Seth Rollins heading into WrestleMania 38, and Lesnar defends the undisputed title against Big E. And speaking of Big E, this is perhaps the most heartbreaking thread in this entire what if. In the real timeline, Big E lost the WWE title and slid back down the card. Weeks later, on an episode of SmackDown, he suffered a broken neck during a tag match that ended his in-ring career. But in the alternate timeline, Big E walks into WrestleMania 38 in a main event program against Brock Lesnar. He goes on to have the sustained singles run. His neck stays intact. But the biggest consequence of this scenario is that the Bloodline saga never happens the way it did. Roman holding both titles simultaneously was the foundation that made the entire Bloodline story possible. Without that unification, without that historic reign, the Bloodline is just another faction. Maybe it still exists, but it never becomes the most critically acclaimed long-term wrestling storyline in modern history. And then there's Cody Rhodes. When Cody returned at WrestleMania 38, he came back to finish a story. But finish it against whom? Does the story become Cody versus Lesnar? And perhaps, without Roman holding the Raw and SmackDown titles simultaneously, the World Heavyweight Championship would never have been reintroduced in 2023. One last-minute card change reshaped modern WWE completely. And speaking of events that changed modern WWE, what if Triple H didn't fumble John Cena's retirement tour and gave him the farewell he deserved? Check out this video next to see exactly how WWE could have booked the perfect...
Yeah, man, a lot going on with that though. So I'm glad I was able to hopefully give you a better reaction to my last one as well too. And if that same asshole want to comment on my video, then I know it wasn't just it wasn't me. It was him. Other than that, I'm glad. Anyway, this was definitely me being fully awake and understanding it though. Definitely a lot of crazy what if. And think about it, this is just possibly the quarter of it. It's definitely more. But other than that, if you like my reaction, like, share, subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's your boy T-Bird signing off. One love.